How about that? Grimmer's Grit and Glory team. Say that 5 times fast.
That's
a lot of alliteration there.
You don't see a lot of alliteration with the G. That's hard work.
Yeah,
that's
hard work. Well, now you're doing the hard work because to make Grimmer's Grit and Glory team, what has to define those characteristics to make your squad?
Well, there's a couple assumptions in this. I'll get to that in a second. We're looking for guys that kind of strike this balance between, hard-nosed sandpaper, but still some upside, some skill to their game. We're looking at for players that kind of bring both those elements. And focused on 2 aspects this year. And that left some pretty good characters out.
Yeah.
But you got to have 5 fighting majors or better this year, this past season. And you got to play it in substantially all the year.
All right, how about this guy, Tanner Jeannot? And when he came onto the scene his rookie season in Nashville, I think single-handedly kind of changed the identity of that team. Why does he make your squad?
Now, he had a bit of a down year last year. Didn't produce not nearly like he did in his rookie year, statistically anyways, but he shows up at about 11 fighting majors this year. He takes on all comers. You see him there in a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey, crosses over to the Bolts in a trade with the Preds late in the year. But Tanner Jeannot brings both elements to me. He's a really gifted player, 24 goals, 41 points in his rookie season with Nashville. But he's a tough customer. Does this surprise you? No. He's from Oxbow, Saskatchewan. Ooh, J-Mo.
I don't know where that is, but it sounds tough.
It's the middle of the frozen tundra back home. It's a cold, hard spot to grow up in. But Tanner Jeannot brings a lot to the game. He's going to mean a lot to these Bolts this year. I think he gets back to that 20-goal, 40-point type season, but he's going to bring that hard-nosed, that pugnacious element.
All right, the Bolts give up a ton to get him, too. So we'll have to see how that plays out down in Tampa. Next on the Grit and Glory team, maybe the toughest guy we have in the NHL right now, Ryan Reaves. Why does he make your team?
This might be the toughest customer on the landscape today. Ryan Reaves, great big body. He's got that barrel-chested. I tell you, he hits like a thundercloud when you fight him.
Most interviews you see him without a shirt. So you get to see that chest often.
You know what he's made of. And there have been a number of teams across the NHL that have gone out of their way to solicit the services. But there you see, I mean, that's just classic Ryan Reaves. Rear back and chuck him. He is a throwback to a different era, my era, and he would have done just fine in that era. Big body, great skater. He's got some offensive upside. A better offensive year, you go back to year 2, I believe it was, when he was a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, 20-plus points that year, but he has a lot of respect out there amongst other NHLers who also provide that level of security, we'll call it.
You mentioned the term throwback, and this guy and his brother kind of throwback-type players in the modern day. They play like their dad, Walt Tkachuk. Yeah. How about Brady Tkachuk? He's got the grit, and he certainly has the glory to go with it.
And I tell you, of all the guys on my list that made this starting 5 this year, Brady Tkachuk, I mean, how many 80-plus point players do you see out there that have where to go? 6 fighting majors and are taking on guys like, these are some tough guys, Tenori, Evander Kane, Jacob Trouba. You don't see a lot of guys that have the offensive, the skilled upside that a Brady Tkachuk does, also providing that really gritty, take charge, sticking up for your teammates and dragging the rest of the group into the battle. Here, we'll slice it a little finer on Brady Tkachuk. I misreferenced that. He had 8 fighting majors on the year, but here's the interesting part about it. 6 of those, J-Mo, and this kind of paints the picture or tells your character, 6 of those were on the road this year. You love that.
I do love that.
You love that.
Yeah. What does that mean? Like, why does that translate more?
If you're bringing it on the road, it's a tougher environment to play in. If you can bring that physical element on the road,
drag your team into the fight, right?
Exactly right, because it's a more imposing environment to play in. So if you can bring that physical element, perhaps you're on your way to coming out on top in that contest. Tougher to play on the road.
Gotcha. And, oh, by the way, he wears the C's, the captain up there
100%.
in Ottawa, so an extra check to his box.
For sure.
Speaking of playing on the road, if there's one road city that really embodies this team, how about the black and gold in Boston?
Yeah.
I mean, they love their tough guys, and they certainly have one in Trent Frederic.
They've got a great one in Trent Frederic. He has really, in my estimation, just year after year, he's taken a step forward each year in his development, but he's always brought that really tough customer, that really hard-nosed brand of hockey. There you see him laying a heavy lick on Seth Jones. But this is a guy that, in an environment where this group had a historic run last year. So you know Frederic given that he's kind of taking on big minutes. 31-point season, 17 of those were goals last year. But this is a guy, again, he recognizes he's part of a really talented roster, is the point I want to make. He's sticking up for those guys. He's providing that physical element for those guys. He was an important part of why those Bruins accomplished what they did last year, JMO.
Speaking of physical elements, we don't have too many huge open ice hits anymore in the National Hockey League, just based on the speed, the skill, and the rules.
Yeah.
But when there are, more times than not, it's the guy in New York with the C on his chest laying the lumber, Jacob Trouba.
And would you believe that element of his game is probably why he gets into as many fighting majors as he does. He's laying a lick on somebody stiff, and this is a difficult thing to do. You know, we often say open ice hitting, like, I was a physical player. I'm able to take people out on the boards. But this open ice hitting, being able to gauge where the puck carrier, your opponent is in space and time and lay a lick like that on him, that's a very difficult thing to do. And again, when he's doing that, you know, the other side is usually taking umbrage of that, and Jacob Trouba finds himself in a scuffle or two. 5 fighting majors on the year this year. 30 points as a defender, and it's no secret to me. And we saw some important moments last year where Jacob Trouba is a choice for captain. That's a choice well placed.
And it's funny because he's on this list for grit and glory, and then off season, you see some of his paintings that he did. Yeah. Like he's a
Renaissance man.
He is a Renaissance man.
He's a Renaissance
it's unbelievable.
man.
If you haven't seen it, go check it out on social media.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
character.
He's got a lot of talent on and off the ice. Speaking of talent, there are high hopes in Montreal for this youngster, and literally, he fought his way on the team, and he did so well they couldn't get rid of him. How about the guy that they nicknamed Wi-Fi?
I put Arber Xhekaj.
Yeah. Spell it.
Can Xhekaj.
Wow.
Got it?
Well done.
Got it.
Yeah.
Or did you mean Wi-Fi? I could have.
Either way.
I could have got that one.
Either way, but you got
delay.
Arber Xhekaj. Why does he? Well, I don't know if he makes his list, but he might be on it next year.
You know, he's only in the mix for 50-ish, I think 51 games last year. Arber Xhekaj. He accumulates 13 points as a defender. Not bad, but he's cutting his teeth in this roster. But here's what Marty St. Louis and the rest of the operations staff at Montreal really like. He brings that physical element. He's a big, rangy defender. He plays a very physical brand of hockey, and he is not shy to shake him off. He did that 9 times last year with some heavy customers, some big customers, as just a 22-year-old player. I'll tell you what, to know this guy's story is to believe there is a lot more to come from Arber Xhekaj.
I love it. Yeah, spell that name. Can I get a vowel, please? Not everybody can make your list, and there were a couple of near misses, including one tough guy, maybe the unicorn of the NHL, just based on the skill and physicality. Injured for much of last year. That's probably why he doesn't make the cut, but why should Tom Wilson probably be on this list?
Yeah, he didn't make the filters, but no question about it. And for me, you know, Tom Wilson is a bit of a throwback in this respect. In my era, there were guys like Marty McSorley, guys like Bob Probert, who could put up big points. Rick Tocchet is another great example. Put up big points, but were equally feared by the rest of the NHL. Tom Wilson is that kind of player. Very comfortable shaking him off, getting into a fighting major to stick up for any one of his teammates on the Washington Capitals roster. But this guy has been a steady improver from the day he walked in the door, and he factors with regularity in the top 6 for the Washington Capitals. So he strikes a really nice balance. He's out of it for a lot of last year. That's why he doesn't make our list. But this is a guy that it really personifies this grit and glory principle we're talking about. Strikes a great balance of both elements.
Grimmer's grit and glory team. I love it.
We might drag that out again.
Below winning
we might have to drag that out again next summer.
I think we will. I think it's a theme that continues on for the rest of the summer and into the season.